My name's Tyler. I'm 34 and I live in a quiet lakeside home in Georgia, one that's been in my family for generations. I inherited the place from my grandfather. It's nestled on about 3 acres of private land, shielded by thick woods, with a sloping backyard that leads straight down to Grayson Lake. For years, my family treated this stretch of the shoreline like our personal haven. Peaceful, untouched, and entirely ours. Roughly 5 years ago, I took it a step further. There was a natural dip in the shoreline, a shallow inlet that curved perfectly into the land. I transformed that spot into what I call a lake pool. A filtered, netted-off swimming area still connected to the lake but safe from fish, algae, and other lake nuisances. Think of it like a pool, but one that blends naturally into the water. It was something my grandfather used to dream about, and I built it in his memory. Every step of the way, I made sure it was by the book. County permits, environmental clearance, zoning checks, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't cheap, but it meant something to me. So imagine my reaction when I got back from a 3-month overseas work assignment to find a notice taped to my front door. It was from the local HOA, demanding that I remove what they called an unauthorized pool built on communal lake property. Communal? That was the first red flag. This land was never part of the HOA's jurisdiction. In fact, when I bought the property, it came with paperwork explicitly exempting it from HOA oversight, something that had apparently slipped through the cracks decades ago when the neighborhood lines were drawn. But lately, the HOA had taken on a new president. Let's just call her Karen Linton, and she was determined to redraw the rules. Karen had moved into one of those ultramodern eco-homes across the lake about a year ago, and immediately began trying to mold the entire area to fit her image of what a cohesive lake community should look like. My lake pool, which she described as ugly, hazardous to children, and bad for community aesthetics, became her personal crusade, even though it wasn't visible from her house and didn't show up in any community photos. She even mailed me a packet full of grainy, zoomed-in photos taken from a boat. Yes, she trespassed just to get them, showing the pool from different angles. But the real escalation came when she tried to get the HOA to absorb my land into their coverage area, claiming environmental grounds. I responded the only way I knew how, with facts. I sent her a certified letter that included a copy of my deed, zoning maps, exemption certificates, and the official environmental permit for the lake pool. I CC'd both my lawyer and the county inspector. I figured that would put an end to it. Didn't. A few weeks later, I actually started dismantling the lake pool. Not because of her complaints, but because invasive plants had started growing in the area, and I wanted to upgrade the filtration system. I was knee-deep in the lake one Saturday morning with my cousin helping me remove the netting and anchor poles when 2 sheriff's deputies arrived. Apparently, someone had reported unauthorized construction on HOA property. The deputies, Michaels and Torres, were professional but clearly confused. I handed them the same stack of documents I'd already sent Karen. They reviewed everything, made a quick call to the county office, and within minutes, apologized. Then one of them asked if I wanted to press harassment charges. I told them no, not yet, because I have another plan in mind for Karen. It started with a bad decision. Someone from the HOA reported me to the police, claiming I was illegally working on land that wasn't mine. The twist? It was mine. I was doing routine upkeep on the lakeside property I'd legally inherited, and their accusation wasn't just petty. It was completely false. That crossed a line. I immediately called Stephen Bradford, the environmental consultant who helped me get the original permits for my lake pool years ago. When I explained what happened, he was livid. Together, we pulled every bit of documentation we had, emails, permits, inspection records, and filed a formal complaint with the county's Environmental Commission and Zoning Board. On top of that, we submitted a trespassing and false report case to the Sheriff's Department targeting the HOA. Then came our biggest move. Stephen filed a report with the State Department of Natural Resources, pointing out that the HOA was making false claims of control over land and water areas they had no legal authority over. 2 weeks later, the state fired back. The HOA received a formal warning letter that made it crystal clear. They had no jurisdiction to interfere with privately permitted shoreline projects. The letter warned that any further meddling could lead to investigations, penalties, or even revocation of their legal status as an HOA. They were ordered to stop asserting control over properties not officially under their governance and to stop spreading misinformation about property lines. But the woman behind the complaint, Karen, didn't take the warning well. Instead of backing off, she doubled down. She tried filing a civil complaint in the HOA's own court, which, importantly, had zero authority over me. Then she began a smear campaign, handing out flyers claiming I was some kind of reckless loner threatening lake safety and violating codes. Her campaign flopped. Most of my neighbors knew better. Some had even enjoyed the pool with my permission in the past. One neighbor, Mr. Langston, even posted publicly defending me, saying, "Karen's trying to fix something that isn't broken. That pool's safer than half the docks around here." Then Karen made her boldest and dumbest move. She tried to hold a community meeting on my property, inviting HOA members to inspect the area. That stunt backfired big time. Georgia law clearly states that entering private land without permission to inspect or interfere can be considered criminal trespass, especially when pretending to have legal authority. She was hit with a $500 fine and a formal warning from the sheriff's department. She quit as HOA president within the week. With her gone, the rest of the HOA scrambled to clean up the mess. Their legal team sent me a letter offering to formally acknowledge my property lines and rights. I had my lawyer draft up an official agreement that they had to sign and register with the county. Then I celebrated in style. I transformed part of the lakeshore into a floating deck complete with solar lighting and underwater cameras. All fully approved and permitted. I threw a huge lakeside party. Friends, neighbors, barbecue, fireworks, and a floating banner that read, "Private property means private business. HOA not invited." A local band played into the evening, and even a couple of deputies came by. One of them brought his wife and stayed for dinner. Since then, it's been calm. A full year of peace. The new HOA president, David, is a reasonable guy. He even sent a handwritten thank you note for not taking legal action against them during Karen's reign. The floating deck has become a beloved fixture on this side of the lake. Inspired by it, a few neighbors have built their own lakeside setups, all legal, all beautiful. As for Karen, she's long gone. Rumor has it she moved after a blowout argument with her husband over her obsessive behavior. Supposedly, they're in a townhouse now where someone else gets to make the rules. As for me, every morning, I walk down to the water with a cup of coffee in hand, take a swim, and look out over the peaceful lake knowing I stood up for what was right and won.